To order the open meeting for Thursday, September 11th, 2025, and ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meetings of Thursday, August 28th, Wednesday, September 3rd, and Monday, September 8th, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss those minutes.
Thank you. I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, August 28, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Monday, September 8, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 4 through 18, or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 20, accepting We Energy's proposal to extend voluntary design assistance program through the 2027 and 2028 program years.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 4 through 12.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 13 through 18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In docket 5EE 2027, I move we approve the request to fund and implement the 2027 to 2028 voluntary energy efficiency program filed by We Energies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our first group of discussion items, agenda items 19, 21, 22, and 23, filings from various IOUs pertaining to their conservation activities and voluntary programs. Commissioner Nieto is going to lead our discussion of all 4 items, so I'm going to turn it over to her, and she will begin our conversation with number 19, docket 5EE 2026.
Thank you, Chair Strand. So we have, as Chairperson Strand said, 4 utility voluntary energy efficiency programs to discuss today. We just approved one of them, the 5th one. And these are programs that are allowed by state law. State law allows investor-owned utilities to fund their own energy efficiency and renewable programs with commission approval in addition to Focus on Energy. Focus on Energy is our statewide energy efficiency and renewables program, which is highly effective and provides excellent value to our state. So the voluntary programs we're discussing today all partner with Focus. They use Focus trade allies, and they go through Focus. For instance, they might add incentives on top of Focus incentives in order to encourage larger or more projects, or otherwise complement Focus activities or budgets to deepen efficiency gains in our state. They're built on top of Focus on Energy as the foundation, which makes sense because we already have Focus as a statewide program with robust infrastructure, policies, networks of contractors, and proven success. So I would just note that the Commission has strongly encouraged, and parties in our proceedings have strongly advocated for utilities to perform more energy efficiency than the minimum they are required to fund through Focus. This is because energy efficiency savings curb the need to build more expensive power plants, transmission lines, and the need to purchase fuels from out of state. This keeps Wisconsin's utility costs down, delivers environmental benefits, and lowers individual participants' bills at the same time. And it also supports Wisconsin's economy and workforce. And that is why energy efficiency is the top priority in the environmental priorities law in Wisconsin state law. So I'll make a couple of other notes that in addition to utilities' customer service conservation activities, each utility has a conservation escrow budget, and that conservation escrow budget includes the budget for the voluntary energy efficiency programs, and it also includes the budget for their required contributions to the statewide Focus on Energy program. So any underspend on one of the voluntary energy efficiency programs that we're talking about today would remain in their conservation escrow and can be carried over to fund a subsequent year's needs, and those budgets are always trued up so that the utility doesn't overpay, the customer doesn't overpay, et cetera. And Another note is in determining whether to approve these proposed programs, we have to assess whether the program is in the public interest. We use 7 factors that are analyzed in detail in commission staff's memos. Those memos are linked on the e-agenda and posted on the PSC website. So with that, we have 4 dockets to discuss. Again, we're starting with 5EE 2026. That is WEPCO and Wisconsin Gas Residential Assistance Program. Just very high level, this is a weatherization and efficiency whole home program for low-income customers, and it essentially covers all the remaining costs after the program participant has gone through Focus's Tier 2 program offerings for low-income customers, and it gives a few measures that Focus doesn't offer on top of that. I will say the applicants here are proposing to integrate lessons learned in previous pilots they've done, expanding who they offer the program to, and then they're really ramping up their activities in this program. So I would note the increase that is being proposed for the 2027 participation would represent the largest year-over-year increase in participation in recent program history. And this program reduces electric usage by 13% on customers' bills and gas usage by 13% as well. So I think that is something of note, and I, for one, was very encouraged and appreciated the ramp up and the setting of ambitious goals and targets here. We do have a first decision point in front of us, which is related to the Evaluation, Measurement, and Verification Plan, or EM&V plan. On this one, we have an option to require the utility to do a formal evaluation and propose a plan to us, or to take no action. The utility is not proposing to do an EM&V plan in this particular round. I, for one, was comfortable with that. This is a program with a proven track record of success, and we haven't had any recent evaluation recommendations that we would need to follow up on, or anything that I particularly needed to expend additional budget to look at this time. So for EM&V, I was at Alt 2, do not require. And then we have a set of alternatives about approving the program, and there I was at Alt 1, approving the program for 2026 to 2027. Chair Strand?
Thank you, and thank you very much for your discussion. I thought that was a really helpful lead-in and explanation of what we're doing in general, but then also specifically about this program. And I was in the exact same places that you are, Alternative 2 and then Alternative 1, for the same reasons. Thank you.
Thanks. And Commissioner Hawkins?
And I was in the same place as well, and just wanted to note the memo as indicating that the recent outcomes of the evaluations have been taken up and improved the program. So I just wanted to give some kudos to the applicant for doing so.
Yeah, that was great too. Thank you. All right, for docket 5EE 2026, I move we approve the request to implement the 2026 to 2027 voluntary energy efficiency program consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now moving to number 21, which is docket 4220 EE 2026. Commissioner Nieto.
Thank you. All right, 4220 EE 2026. This is a program by NSPW. This is a program that is on the commercial side. It's for small to medium-sized commercial and industrial customers, and it offers bonus incentives that are equal to 50% of the Focus incentive. And there's a $5,000 per customer premise cap. And then there's a sub-program called the mid-market program, and that adds an additional 25% to the 50% as a bonus to commercial and industrial customers who are not managed by a dedicated NSPW account manager. And that also has the $5,000 cap. For this one, We also have a second program, which is a home energy assessment program that NSPW is requesting to continue, and this one's on the residential side. And the utility is requesting to reduce the total program budget here to align with observed and expected participation. So the first question before us is related to the commercial program's overall cost effectiveness and the cost effectiveness goal. So this was an interesting question, but essentially currently this program is held to an 8-to-1 cost effectiveness goal, meaning that for every $1 spent by the program should produce $8 worth of benefits. And the applicant is saying that goal should actually be reset to a 1-to-1 because that's what energy efficiency programs are held to generally in the industry. So our statewide focus on energy program is required by law to meet a $1 to $1 cost effectiveness, and that's really an industry standard. And having this one particular program's cost effectiveness set at this different level doesn't align with the focus program upon which it's built, and just set some misaligned incentives here. I will note that the program meets and exceeds its even high goal. So there was, in the 2024 evaluation, $11.28 of utility dollar savings for every $1 the utility spent. It's amazing. This program does an excellent job. I don't take it that the applicant is looking to lower the bar here. I do agree on aligning incentives. I agree on keeping a 1-to-1 cost-benefit ratio, even on principle in terms of what it communicates. There shouldn't be this expectation or standard that this one program, for some reason, meet 8 times the cost effectiveness of what energy efficiency programs are supposed to do. And this is the type of thing we're supposed to be encouraging and not creating higher bars and discouraging. So for all of those reasons on cost effectiveness, I was at Alt-1 accepting the proposal to revise the goal to 1-to-1 using the utility administrator test. We have a couple other decision points here. We are also looking at EM and V on this one, as we did in the last one. In this particular program is a little different than the last program because it does have a cost effectiveness test, and because we are talking about energy savings for non-low income customers. So this one is on a regular EM and V cadence, and that is why I was at Alt-1 requiring NSPW to submit its evaluation plan by December 1, 2025. The utility already plans to submit a plan. This just gives clarification around a date, which I think clarification helps. And then regarding approval of the programs, I was at Alt-1 approving the commercial CCP again, and Alt-1 approving the targeted program again. Chair Strand?
I was literally in the same exact spot on all 4 decision items for this one. And you said the reasoning perfectly, so I will not rehash any of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you. I am at the same place as my colleagues, Alt-1 for across the board. And I just wanted to raise something that jumped out to me on this particular set of programs is that the NSPW programs are very commercial customer focused from a budget standpoint. And my understanding is the way that the escrow works is that all customer classes pay for these programs. And I'm just throwing it out there for a future rate proceeding that looking at who is paying for these programs should be evaluated in a rate case proceeding to make sure that we don't have cross-subsidization of these programs going on. The full focus escrow makes sense for how that cost allocation works because there are programs in all of the customer classes. And here we have a rather significantly sized program that only benefits mid-sized commercial customers being paid for by everyone. So I'm just putting that out there into the world. I think it's a great program and I support it, but I think the way that it's paid for needs to be investigated in a future proceeding.
Thanks, Commissioner Hawkins. Would you propose that as a formal order point or putting it out there so that staff and others are aware for a future rate proceeding too?
The latter.
Okay, thank you. I think that makes sense as well, and I think as our memo states, and you both know very clearly, but for others too, NSPW also offered for quite some time a very similar residential program, and that program is no longer running, and perhaps that's something that the utility will be open to looking at bringing back up in the future. And I think some of the reasons, as the memo discussed, that program isn't running anymore, it had to do with the cost effectiveness testing and some errors that came up in a cost effectiveness test, and the commission ultimately voted not to continue the program. I think that's something that is kind of ripe to be looked at again as well, but again, not an order point or anything like that, just a mention. Would you add anything, Chair Strand?
Nope, but I appreciate the conversation. Thank you both.
Thank you. All right, in docket 4220 EE 2026, I move we approve the request to fund and implement 2026 voluntary energy efficiency programs consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now number 22, which is docket 6680 EE 2026. Commissioner Nieto.
Great, thank you. This is Wisconsin Power and Light's Enhanced Low-Income Weatherization Program. Some people call it LUIP, just in case you hear that. So LUIP works in coordination with Focus to cover costs of whole home weatherization and energy efficiency improvements for income-qualified single-family and multifamily unit homeowners who receive gas service or electric and gas service from WP&L. This program, I'll just start by saying we have one unique question here that is on an incentive cap per unit for multifamily participants in the program. And essentially, the program proposal is targeting 94 multifamily units to be served. And the program has a cap of $4,000 as an incentive per multifamily unit. So the program originally started with an $8,000 cap for single-family units and $8,000 for multifamily. When it had that $8,000 for both, the program served 35 multifamily units. When the cap for multifamily went down to $4,000, that number changed, and the program in those program years began to serve 0 multifamily units and continued to serve high numbers of single-family units and continued that $8,000 cap. So staff is asking, essentially, is there value in bringing that multifamily cap back up to $8,000 so that the program can in these upcoming program years, serve multifamily customers and get those customers to participate in the program. This was also a recommendation or note coming out of the last evaluation for the program. There was a note that the $4,000 multifamily cap was a barrier to the multifamily participation. And so the utility indicated that it didn't have plans in this filing to ask the commission for a higher cap on the multifamily, and it still maintained its same target number of multifamily units to serve, but it also has a goal structure in which it needs to meet overall budgetary spending goals, and it doesn't specifically need to meet the number of multifamily units or the number of single-family units. It just needs to do a combination of activities to meet the overall umbrella goal. And so that said, I think where I was at on this one was a modification to one of the alternatives here. We had an option under Alt 1 Sub Alt C to require WP&L to submit for commission staff approval a higher incentive cap. I think our best path forward here would be doing a modified, let's call it an Alt D, which would be require WP&L to work with staff and submit an update addressing the multifamily cap and customer participation, and to do so by December 1, 2025. That date also aligns with what we'll talk about with evaluation plan as well. And the reason I would like to do something like this is because, number one, this gives more of an opportunity for commission staff to work with WP&L program staff and to discuss some of the nuances of this kind of unique question. I think program staff had suggested that perhaps on a one-off or on a case-by-case basis, perhaps they could go over the 4,000 cap, but then we get into the issue of if we have a cap, it needs to be available as the highest cap for everyone. And so talking through kind of what that suggestion might have entailed and giving some opportunity for folks to get aligned here and to report back to us. That's where I'm at for that one. We do have EM and V as a question for this program as well. I would be at requiring WP&L to submit an evaluation, measurement, and verification plan for its 2026 to 2027 LEWIP program for commission staff approval, again, by that same December 1, 2025 date. We have ordered these EM and V plans for this program on a regular cadence every 2 years, because this is still a newer program and there's still some recommendations coming out of the EM and V, which is why I saw it as different from the first one that we discussed, the residential assistance program, which is a similar program type, but with it just has a longer running history. So that's where I was at on that. And then we had alternatives around annual reporting. Again, because this is a newer program, this utility isn't yet in the same cadence that the other utilities are. The We Energies, WPS, they do annual reporting. NSPW does quarterly reporting all the way up to annual. And so here, yes, I think it's appropriate to require WP&L to file an annual report for its LEWIP by April 1 of each year on the same schedule the other utilities do that for these programs. And then for commission alternatives, I would be at Alt 2, approving the proposed LEWIP with modifications consistent with our discussion due to that sub-Alt D that I suggested. Chair Strand?
Thank you. Okay, so for the first decision item, which is your position is that sub-Alt D, I think that is a very reasonable collaborative approach to kind of determine maybe what's going on here and hopefully glean some information that can help inform how this program looks going forward. I wasn't 100% sold that raising the cap from 4 to 8 would clear up some of the issues being faced with the multifamily aspect of this. And I think that your proposed alternative is a helpful solution, especially for something that's a voluntary program. So I can absolutely join you there, and I appreciate the thought that you put into developing that. So decision item 2 was about the EM and V plan, and decision item 3 was about an annual plan. I was comfortable with the annual plan, and I didn't really have a strong feeling on the EM and V, but I'm very comfortable joining you at requiring the EM and V plan at Alt 1 for that decision item, and then also at Alt 1 for the annual reporting decision item. So requiring that be filed by April 1st of each year. And then, yes, I was in the same place on just the approval of the program overall at Alt 2 because of the modifications that we discussed. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair Strand. And Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks. Similar place to Chair Strand. I find joining on sub D for decision 1. I think that's a reasonable path forward. I also didn't have a strong preference on decision 2. I thought with the annual reporting requirement for decision 3 that an evaluation may not be necessary, but I'm fine joining you at Alt 1 there unless you have other thoughts on that. Decision 3, definitely at Alt 1 supporting the annual reporting by April 1, and same as my colleagues for Alt 2, approval with modifications is where I'm at.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. I don't have much further on the EM&V other than just that note that as this program continues and becomes more of a longer running program with that longer track record, I don't think the every 2-year cadence will be necessary on this one either, similar to the RAP. So I wouldn't envision it in future cycles, if that makes sense to you both.
I think so.
Yeah, it does. That is helpful, the differences there.
Yep, thank you.
In docket 6680 EE 2026, I move we approve the request to fund and implement the 2026 to 2027 voluntary energy efficiency program consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Last item of this group, number 23, docket 6690 EE 2026. Commissioner Nieto.
All right, this is Wisconsin Public Service Corporation's Residential Assistance Program. It is modeled after the WEPCO Wisconsin Gas Program that we discussed at the outset, providing weatherization services for low-income customers in the WPSC service territory to address energy efficiency of the entire home and help reduce energy costs. Like before, the applicant would also, like before, as in the We Energies request, WPSC would also like to increase its goals and budget significantly and integrate pilot markets into the core program. And again, I would just say kudos to the applicant for working to improve and expand its program. So we have the same two alternatives here, EM and V. I was in the same spot as in the WEPCO WG, which is Alt2, do not require WPSC to submit an evaluation, measurement, and verification plan for the same reasons I stated in that docket. And second alternatives on the approval, I'm at Alt1, approve WPSC's RAP for the 2026 to 2027 program years. Chair Strand?
I'm in the exact same place on both. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hawkins?
Same here.
All right, thank you. In docket 6690 EE 2026, I move we approve the request to fund and implement 2026 to 2027 voluntary energy efficiency programs consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Nieto. We will now turn to agenda item number 24, our last discussion item today. It is docket 137 CE 210, which is the application of ATC for a CPCN to construct the Dodge County Distribution Interconnection Project. Commissioner Hawkins is going to lead our discussion of this, so I will turn it over to him now for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Strand. Today, we will decide on the merits of the application by ATC for a CPCN to construct, as was mentioned, the mouthful of a name of a project, Dodge County Distribution Interconnection Project. I might refer to it as Dodge County going forward, depending on how I'm feeling. In leading the discussion, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the project, and then we'll talk through each of the issues as outlined in our decision matrix. There are 11 issues, some with sub-issues, and there are 2 that are uncontested that we will not be discussing. I want to start off by thanking everyone that participated in the development of the record for this docket, especially the landowners that participated in the development of the agricultural impact statement with DATCAP staff, and to our single intervener representing the P&Q Warmqua Quarry, and many who submitted public comments. Thanks to all that participated. I'd also like to thank the staff that worked on this application, particularly the PSC staff within DCEA, DNR, and DATCAP staff. This was a great example, I thought, of a project where public comments make the project better, and we had concerns raised, data requests issued, and then actual commitments made by the applicant resulting from that. An example is bird diverters that are now part of the project near the Robbins Shorebird waterfowl production area along Beaver Dam Lake. And staff from DATCAP also worked with affected landowners to gather additional information on possible ways to mitigate agricultural land impacts. And so I thought there were some really solid examples of staff hearing from affected landowners and improving the project. So I just wanted to highlight those items. Overview of the project. So For considering a CPCN, the size of the project determines our review process, and when reviewing a transmission project such as this one, the commission considers alternative routes as well as the need, engineering, economic, safety, reliability, individual hardships, and potential environmental effects. The proposed Dodge County project involves both expanding existing infrastructure and constructing new infrastructure located across multiple cities, towns, and villages in Dodge and Columbia counties. The applicant stated the need as adequately and reliably interconnecting new continuously operating a large data center load and resolving thermal and voltage limitations created by that load addition. The project is also anticipated to maintain reactive power margins under various operating conditions and provide acceptable voltage support in the area surrounding Beaver Dam. If approved, the construction is expected to commence in early 2026 in order to meet an expected July 2027 date for the new load to be online. More specifically, the project would include the expansion of the North Randolph substation in the town of Randolph, construction of a new Manhattan substation in the town of Trenton, construction of a new 15-mile double-circuit 138 kV line between the two aforementioned substations, and the rebuilding of 15 miles of existing 138 kV lines known affectionately as X47 between those two substations. And finally, the construction of two new 138 kV double circuit lines from the new Manhattan substation to the new large load customer-owned substations. The project would also include some rerouting of existing lines and minor substation work to make sure everything plays nice together. So it's important to note that no party in this proceeding has disputed the project's need. In addition to the commission staff having confirmed the applicant's need analysis, there are, however, some issues before us today that will need to be sorted out, and we'll discuss those with the guidance of our decision matrix. There are two routes that the applicant provides for our review, and that's sort of standard business. And just some opening comments I wanna make on that is, while technically the commission is not limited to considering the two routes as proposed, and can consider combinations of the various segments of the preferred and alternative routes. Unfortunately, the way that the application was assembled does not easily allow for that to actually happen. Going forward, I'd expect the applicant to more clearly define options for combinations of proposed segments between preferred and alternate routes, including minimal design changes that could enable that. Clearly stating those options will afford the commission maximum flexibility in addressing specific landowner concerns and impacts that may arise later on in the proceeding. So I just want to put that out there, that especially in a project like this where we have a lot of intermingling of the preferred and alternate route, clearly expressing how combinations of those segments could or could not be made to work would be really important for me to see in future applications, because when we discover individual impacts later on in the proceeding, it's good to have the evidence of what all the range of solutions are to address those might be, and we don't have that evidence in the record in this case. The applicant reviewed the two routes that were put forward in the application using a multi-stage process that balanced quantitative and qualitative factors, considering the design, engineering, and economics, and provided two cost estimates. The preferred route is estimated at $191 million, and the alternate route is estimated at $198 million. As mentioned, there was one intervener that participated, P&Q Warmca, LLC. Quick summary of my position before tossing it to my colleagues for any opening remarks they may have. Overall, I do support the approval of this application based on the demonstrated need by the applicant. As I said, both the applicant and staff have verified that the project is needed to meet reliability standards. It's important to note that today we're only deciding on the certification and siting of the proposed project and not how the project ultimately gets paid for. Cost recovery is something determined by a combination of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and future commission proceedings here at the PSC. And based on the commitments made and the conditions we'll consider, I expect that the applicant will continue to work closely with affected landowners during the final detailed design and siting, as is typically the case. So I'll pause there and see if there are any comments from my colleagues. Chair Strand?
I have nothing to add other than what you said, so thank you for the introduction, and I echo your thanks to the various parties who participated and got this to where it is before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nieto?
Same, I'd echo your thanks and agree with your introduction and everything you've said, and thanks for the good framing, too.
Awesome. Well, then we will kick things off with issue 1, which is asking the commission if constructed, would the project satisfy the reasonable needs of the public. The requirements put forth in the statute state the conditions where the commission may reject the project if it finds that it would do one or more of the following: that is, substantially impair the efficiency of utility service, provide facilities unreasonably in excess of probable future requirements, or add to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value or available quantity of service. We examine those requirements considering load growth forecasts, reliability standards, as well as total project costs and benefits. And to make the case for this project, the applicant cited the need to reliably serve a new large load interconnection request by WP&L for a large data center load, and also provided power flow modeling and demonstrated a variety of reliability issues caused in the absence of the project. Transitioning to my position on this one, I am at Alt 1, which is yes, the proposed project, if constructed, would satisfy the reasonable needs of the public for an adequate supply of electric energy, and I thought the applicant sufficiently demonstrated the need to meet NERC reliability standards, and that was confirmed by staff, as I mentioned. So I am at Alt 1 for issue 1.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1 as well. Thanks.
Great. Moving on to issue 2. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute, the commission must find that the proposed project is in the public interest, considering a range of factors, including alternative sources of supply, alternative locations, individual hardships, engineering, economic, safety, reliability, and environmental factors. It is the responsibility of the applicant to design a project that meets the stated needs while minimizing negative impacts to the greatest extent practicable. The applicant did consider several different electrical transmission solution options and determined that the project as proposed is the best value alternative for interconnecting the new load. Commission staff reviewed the analysis and economic modeling and confirmed those findings, and these results were supplemented by in-depth analysis from the environmental assessment and the agricultural impact study. For this particular issue, I am at alternative 1. My review of the record, I found the project to be in the public interest, considering the alternate sources of supply and locations that were considered and the alternative electrical solutions that were analyzed. I was comforted by the findings of the environmental assessment and the recommendations by DNR, and the project design and evaluation method presented by the applicant demonstrated efforts to minimize impacts on individuals and the environment. So I am at Alt 1 for issue 2.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1 for the same reasons. Thank you.
Issue 3, the commission has an obligation to consider the priorities outlined in the Energy Priority Law, EPL. In all energy-related decisions, the applicant considered various transmission solution alternatives that were ultimately rejected. And as far as non-transmission options, they make clear in the record that the EPL options are not relevant, given that ATC is a transmission-only utility. As they further explain, the applicant looked at a no-build option that would not allow WP&L to serve the large load interconnection request due to violating NERC reliability standards. So for the EPL issue 3, I am at alternative 1, that no EPL alternatives exist that are cost-effective, technically feasible, and environmentally sound alternatives to the proposed project.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1 as well. Thanks.
Issue 4 is another requirement for issuance of a CPCN in determining that the project route would not unreasonably interfere with the orderly land use and development plans for the area involved. And to review this issue, the applicant submitted various zoning maps and compiled local land use plans that are all reviewed as part of this requirement. And for my position on this issue, based on those investigations into land use and potential future plans, I am comfortable that this project does not unreasonably interfere with either and finds that the project complies with the associated statute. So I am at alternative 1 for issue 4.
Alternative 1, thank you.
Alternative 1, thanks.
Issue 5 was uncontested, so we will move along to issue 6, which is another set of requirements for issuance of a CPCN, determining which route alternative, if any, the commission authorizes for the proposed projects. For this, based on the 2 routes that we have examined in detail, and again, going back to my earlier comments, we have limited details on how combinations of the 2 routes could have worked. I am supportive of the proposed route, which is alternative 1 for issue 6. I support the preferred route because it's cheaper, shorter, minimizes environmental impacts, and has less interference with residential structures, particularly close proximity residences. There's a big difference between the preferred and alternate routes as to the number of close proximity residential structures that are impacted. So and I'd also like to highlight that the preferred route avoids the vast majority of impacts that were identified by our sole intervener, PQW, which were only caused for the alternate route. So all of that said, I am at alt 1 for issue 6.
Alt 1 for the same reasons, thank you.
Well said, alternative 1 for the same reasons, and I specifically agree with your comments on clearly expressing in the record what the various options are. Thanks.
All right, moving on to issue 7. Issue 7 presents all of the standard order conditions that commission staff suggest for this project. I will also note that the applicant does object to Romanet 2 and suggests a modification that adds a sentence to the end of that condition, clarifying it. And in addition to Romanet 2, I'm going to propose modifications to Romanet 8 and 10 to maintain consistency with our prior decisions. And I'd like to take the latter 2 Romanets first, and so we'll start with 8 and 10. Let me scroll forward here. The language for Romanet 8 is different than what was proposed in testimony by direct testimony by Commission staff Bushy, and I would suggest that the language be revised to match what was offered in the staff testimony, and that's consistent with the language circulated by our Chief Legal Counsel yesterday and also in our recent decisions. For Romanet 10, I'll propose the addition of "to the extent practicable" to maintain consistency with our recent decisions on that condition. And pivoting back to Romanet 2, I'm opposed to the suggested change becoming part of standard order conditions going forward. That said, I think this modification for this particular project might make sense. And what's important to me is that the applicant be required to explain the unique circumstances for why they can't wait for all permits to be received for the entire project or an entire project spread before commencing construction. I think this condition regularly is a very important consumer protection provision. And I acknowledge that there can be circumstances where it's appropriate to allow construction in certain areas prior to receiving all permits. And so that said, I think the modification as put forward by the applicant is reasonable in this instance, but would not like to see that language become part of the standard condition going forward. So that is where I'm at on the standard order conditions.
Thank you. I'll go in the order that you did. I was also interested in adding to the extent practicable language to Romanet 10. So I will support that modification. I would only support Romanet 8 if the less contingency costs language is removed. So given that that's what you proposed, I will join you on that modification as well. I'm glad that you are highlighting Romanet 2 and the proposed modification. To your point, Romanet 2 is standard language that has been included in all recent related dockets. I think I didn't find a lot of very helpful or informative information as to why the applicant was seeking the modification here. And I agree with what you're saying, that I would not want Romanet 2 modified as a standard condition going forward. I do think it would be helpful to understand the why, to better understand the why here. And so, again, because I don't feel like that the applicant did a great job of explaining that, which is also why I didn't think it was necessary to approve the modification, right? I think that what you have proposed is reasonable and could actually help. I don't want to do anything that's gonna inhibit or delay the acquisition of needed permits, just so we can try to keep everything on schedule. But I don't think what you're proposing is overly problematic. I'm curious to hear what Commissioner Nieto has to say about that as well. And I might just ask for slightly further clarification just to make sure that we're capturing if we decide to approve a modified version of Romanet 2. Okay, but thank you. Commissioner Nieto.
Thanks to you both. All right, so same order, Romanet 10 to the extent practicable. I agree with you both, and that should be added and standard. Romanet 8, I also agree with you both, with less the contingency costs removed. And then moving up to Romanet 2, I came into this discussion at a position of not accepting the modifications. And I think Commissioner Hawkins, to your point about it being an important consumer protection, and something that I was a little bit worried about was perhaps a slippery slope. The current standard language we have in place is language that was advocated for in a number of cases in years past that represents a loosening of the original language that had been used, and this is kind of one step further in that regard. And I think on one hand, doing what we can to, on a case-by-case basis, to ensure that we're offering an efficient, streamlined process is important. And then on the other end, maintaining those essential protections and not getting to a point where it's requested in every docket and there's not a lot of thorough, robust analysis would be my concern. So that's a little bit where I'm at right now.
Thank you both for that. I was originally in a very similar place, and I definitely appreciate the slippery slope concerns. One thing I think to what Chair Strand was saying is this could be demonstrated, the need could be demonstrated more clearly as to what the problems might be, and that really wasn't done in this case. And going to the consumer protection angles of why we have this condition in the first place, I think the applicant could also have done a better job of explaining what, I know there's other dockets at the commission that have some consumer protection related to this project out there that could be explained as to the risk of moving forward on construction might not actually be borne by all of the consumers at large or the public at large. So that could be a factor that's considered in modifying this condition as well. So there's a couple different things that could have been put forward here. So I'm sympathetic to what both of you have stated. I'm still okay with the modification as I originally laid out. But I think there will be more time-sensitive projects that we're going to be getting. It's just the nature of the industry today. And so I think figuring out what we want to see in these particular situations would be key. And so I think both of the items that you've raised, are, if there's particular consumer protection agreements or things in place, that could be a good reason to modify. And then also if there are particular construction-related or components that need to move on a different timeline, that could also be more clearly articulated as well. So those are things that I think would make this easier going forward. So I'll pause there and see if you have anything.
So I think, first of all, this is a good discussion. I'm glad we're talking about this. And I just want to make sure that we are all clear on where the three of us each individually are, so that we can decide kind of what we want to do with this. So I think Commissioner Nieto is supportive, and please correct me if I'm wrong, of keeping Romanet 2 as is and not approving the modification sought by the applicant here.
That's correct, and as a more informal note, outside of any order point, I'm agree and I'm open to what's been discussed here in terms of the future of projects, time sensitivity, and being smart at how we look about these things with justification and development in the record. But for this one, I would stay at the way that Romanet 2 is currently written.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. And then I will let you, I believe you are at, correct me if I'm wrong, requiring the applicant to provide further information as to why they were seeking the modification? Or please restate what, if and when, if you are, what your position is on Romanet 2.
I was fine with including it as the modification as proposed by the applicant, and just noted that I would have liked to see additional information. So I was fine with the modification, which adds the language, only permits for the construction activities being performed are needed. That's where I started. I am not indifferent, but I could see why not accepting it is also a good step at this time, so.
Thank you. That was very helpful as well. I think one major thing that we're all in agreement on that we should just restate is that if, especially on standard conditions, modifications are being sought, they need to be very clearly articulated as to why, so that we can think about the why and the justification that's being provided as part of our decision-making. So I'll just, for anyone, put that out there, because I do think that that has clouded kind of where we are on this one right now, just because to me it's not very clear of why the modification was sought. I think I also kind of dug into this one and was curious about certain aspects of it, but I think at the end of the day, given a lot of the things that we've raised here, I think we should keep it. I think I would be most comfortable keeping Romanet 2 as is, but again, being open to further discussion if it is very project-specific and very well articulated to any, if I'm not encouraging potential modification to Romanet 2 going forward, but if anyone is attempting to modify Romanet 2 or anything else in the standard conditions, we need really good substantive discussion and analysis of this in the record in order for us to make, I think, the best informed decision. So, again, I appreciate all of your thoughts on this, and Commissioner Hawkins, you're kind of digging into this and looking for ways to kind of make it slightly more palatable. But I think, again, just to kind of preserve where we are with our standard conditions, and given some, I think, somewhat unclear motivations here, I would be most comfortable supporting leaving Romanet 2 as is. Does that help?
It does. If we want to include in this order condition language, indicating that it's very specific to this proceeding, I could offer some language, or we could, if we're in agreement, to not include it. So the language I would offer is, for purposes of this proceeding, but not as a standard order condition modification going forward, only permits for the construction activities being performed are needed.
I'm fine joining my colleagues on not accepting the modification. And one thing that we haven't discussed is really the risk to the permit delays. Like, that's something that we've seen in other applications as far as a back and forth in the record as to what the actual timing implications may be. We don't have any of that information. So for that reason, I'm fine joining you both at not including it. which I believe brings us to alternative 1 with the other modifications that we had.
I think that we would be, frankly, I think we would be at a modified alternative 1.
Right.
So I think in order to capture our discussion of 8 and 10, we would be at all of the standard conditions with modifications discussed and agreed to on 8 and 10 are necessary for approval of the proposed project, and then adopt the original version of condition 2, or Romanet 2.
Yep,
Yes.
that's what I
Yes.
would have to.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you for that discussion. That brings us to, I guess I'll check with legal. We're good?
Yep.
Sorry. Don't need to be off to the races if we don't need to be. Issue 8, the project-specific order conditions. And 8A, I have a typo in my script here, is related to conditions put forward by staff witness Bushy suggesting that competitive bids and reporting requirement be incorporated into the quarterly reporting condition, and that specifies that a summary of competitive bids received within the quarter, if any, for work to be performed and equipment to be procured as part of the project. I will also note that the applicant has no objection to the inclusion of this. I am okay with the inclusion. I have a minor modification, again, for consistency. That puts me at Alt 2, and the modification is to add the language as applicable. I believe we've done that in recent cases. And that is where I'm at for issue 8A.
Thanks. I'm in the exact same spot with the exact same modification. I know that it's a timing issue, but I think we agreed a couple weeks ago that we expect that the language will be adopted as the new standard going forward. So we'll see that eventually, but same spot. Thank you.
Same for me as well, for the reasons you both stated. Thanks.
Great. On issue 8B, there were several suggested requirements provided by Wisconsin DNR witness Matthews, which are meant to help avoid potential indirect impacts to wetlands and waterways during the post-project construction and during and post-project construction. And I will not read all of those as they are publicly available in the DM, and I'll note that the applicant does not oppose any of the proposed conditions. I am at alternative 1, which is all of the conditions listed in 8B are necessary for approval of the project. I'm supportive of the inclusion of all of them, and I will turn it over to Chair Stan.
Thanks. I was supportive as well. I think we are also making baby steps on project-specific conditions because we have at least one project-specific condition here finally. And I also appreciate to the extent practical language being included in Romanet 5. I know we had a bit of an inconsistency with that in a previous docket. So for those reasons, I am at alternative 1 as well. Thank you.
Alt 1 for me too. Thanks.
Great. We are, I don't know if my computer is moving along, but I am moving along to 8C, which introduces a proposed condition by DNR witness Rowe aimed at avoiding construction impacts to nesting birds and roosting bats. And it states that the applicant shall implement clearing and pruning of all tree species time of year restrictions from April 1 through August 15. The DNR and commission staff argue that this condition restricting the time period of clearing and pruning trees is necessary to mitigate the impacts to nesting birds and roosting bats, given the lack of adequate procedure to mitigate such impacts. And the applicant argues that they have already confirmed that the cutting and pruning of oak trees will be avoided between April 1 and July 15, and the additional avoidance period makes the project infeasible due to timing and construction considerations. For my position, I just want to acknowledge the work of DNR and commission staff that they've done to better understand the applicant's avian protection procedure and identify areas where it may be lacking. And so I just want to give that a quick shout out. And I'm going to have a consistent position to where I was a couple of weeks ago, that I'm at alternative 2 that condition 8C as modified, and the modification is basically to add to the extent practicable to the timing. So I am at alternative 2 with that addition of to the extent practicable language to the restriction timeline.
Thanks. I'm in the exact same place with the exact same modification, and I appreciate you discussing this. I think in general, when we have a proposed restrictions that potentially impact the contractor's ability to undertake construction activities during what is prime construction season in Wisconsin, AKA usually the ground is not frozen. I think it's important for us to add that modifier to allow for that flexibility and to mitigate the potential schedule impacts that these types of restrictions can put in place. And as you said, it's also consistent with recent decisions to add that language. So I think for those reasons, I'm very comfortable with that. So Alt 2 with the modification you mentioned. Thank you.
Same here. I was at Alt 2, same modification, and you both articulated the reasons well, and echoing the acknowledgement of the good work digging into the avian protection procedure and the importance of adding this language, and consistent with our last discussion on this topic too. Thanks.
All right, that brings us to 8D, and here we are considering a condition put forth by DATCAP witness Biefeld, which proposes a modification to the preferred route. The applicant is strongly opposed to this modification and provided some justification for why this change could be problematic. And through the back and forth, witness Biefeld suggested alternative conditions that could be considered if the routing modification that was originally suggested was not supported by the commission. So we have kind of some tiered options here. The first modification that's before us is a suggestion that the applicant remove route segments A10 and A11 and instead have the proposed route continue from segment A9 to C28A, which is the brownfield, the existing right-of-way through the quarry, and continue on from that point. So as I stated earlier, this is the specific spot that was my motivation for asking for different combinations of alternative or alternate and preferred routes. And I appreciate the emphasis that was placed on mitigating impacts to agricultural lands. That was thoroughly laid out in the AIS, and this proposal, or this proposed modification, stems from the requirements that DATCAP has for the AIS and reaching out to landowners and kind of that early outreach, and this is really showing the system working in my the recommended changes to route both the single circuit and double circuit segments directly through the quarry. I agree with the applicant that would be problematic and costly and is not the right thing to do in this instance, and I thought that the applicant defended why that should not be pursued adequately. I also appreciate the DATCAP witness expressing the fact that they were only comfortable speaking to the known impacts to the agricultural land and didn't speak to the potential impacts to the quarry, and clearly stated it is unknown from their perspective what those impacts might be. And so I thought there was good recognition there of the expertise, and I appreciated seeing that in the back and forth. So for this one, I am at alternative 2 because I do support 2 of the alternative conditions that were put forward by the DATCAP witness Biefeld, specifically the first 2 of the 4. So let me see here. I only support those 2 because, in my view, the 3rd and 4th bullets are redundant to requirements already placed, requirements or commitments made by the applicant, basically. So I think the first 2 are useful. However, given the specific set of circumstances for this particular landowner, so these conditions that I am referring to would require that the applicant avoid impacting any existing permanent erosion control structures And then the second one is on, basically a condition that if something is disrupted, a temporary structure has to be installed and a permanent control has to be replaced at some point in time. So I am supportive of including those two items, which I believe is a alternative to condition 8D modified to simply include those two and nothing else. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for your robust discussion of this. It is a little unique in that I don't recall AIS aspects or additional conditions being specifically pulled out and put forward for us to consider in any of our recent dockets. So this is relatively unique and new for, at least for the three of us. I do not support the reroute as proposed by DATCAP as kind of the first option to consider under 8D. So I'm with you at a no on that. In terms of the following, of the other four alternative conditions, they have not been fully developed in the record beyond the DATCAP's rebuttal. And I agree with what you're saying, that we would not want them weighing in on something that, like the quarry impact, since that's not AIS and within kind of the DATCAP purview. But I think in general, going forward, if additional conditions are going to be proposed, I would prefer that our staff is working with DATCAP and/or other included entities to ensure that those conditions are being vetted and analyzed in the record, similar to how other project-specific conditions are and have been, just so that we have that full availability of information, so we can make, a more informed decision. With that being said, I am comfortable including those two of the four alternative conditions, the first and the second, for the reasons that you said, and I appreciate your comments regarding 3 and 4 being redundant. I think everyone knows how I feel about redundant conditions. And I believe that your stating of a modified alternative, of alternative 2, so a modified condition 8D is accurate. So I will join you there, which is a no to the reroute and a yes to the first two of the 4. Thank you.
Thank you. I was at Alt 2 as well. I'm a no on the reroute, and I'll join you both on adopting the first 2 of the conditions. Also appreciate the note on redundancy on the second 2. And Chairperson Strand, I agree with your comments about additional work on these types of conditions should they arise in the future with the 2 staff teams. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. I believe that brings us to issue 9, which is uncontested. So we will move along to issue 10, which asks the commission to consider whether or not the commission has complied with WIPA pursuant to Wisconsin statute and administrative code. And as is standard with a project of this nature, an environmental assessment was prepared jointly by the commission and DNR staff in accordance with the requirements of WIPA, and I am at alternative 1, that the commission has complied with WIPA.
Thanks. I was in the same spot. Thank you.
Alt 1, thanks.
All right. 10B is asking the commission to consider whether the proposed project will have undue adverse impacts on other environmental values, and the impacts on these other values are considered in the planning and design of the project and further emphasized through the inclusion of other order conditions proposed by DNR to attempt to mitigate potential negative environmental impacts. Based on the record, I believe the project will not have undue adverse impact on other environmental values, and that those possible impacts were adequately considered in the record. I'll note that the EA confirmed that the project is unlikely to have significant environmental impacts, and of the 10 factors used to consider whether an EIS is warranted, there were no major concerns with any of those. Some new environmental impacts would occur, but many are anticipated to be temporary and comparable with the expected types of impacts from a construction project of this size. So that puts me at alternative 1 for 10B.
Same. Thank you.
Alt 1, thank you.
Great. And issue 11 is, should the commission grant a CPCN for the proposed project? The last issue asks us up or down whether we are going to approve the project given the entirety of the record and the discussion that we've had today. For this issue, I am at alternative 2. I believe that the DM is missing the language at the end of issue 2, which says with modifications and conditions, which is supposed to be there. So I am at a modified alternative 2, that yes, the commission should grant a CPCN for the proposed project with modifications and conditions as discussed here today.
Good catch. I'm in the same exact place. Thank you.
Same here. Thanks.
Okay, I think we're set.
Yeah, great job. Ready for a motion. Thank you.
All right. In docket 137 CE 210, I move we grant a CPCN for the Dodge County Distribution Interconnection Project consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to thank you both for your excellent work in leading our discussions today. That does conclude our official business. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 18th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, September 18, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.